Yes, hi, hello, and welcome back to Lorelink Plays. And I should be audible and I should have captions. And yes, progressive maintenance is the best way to work with computers, or at least it feels like the best way to work with computers sometimes. Just slamming them against stuff until you get stuff to work. Awesome, I am audible, I am captioned. Awesome. So, hi, basically, if you were here for last week, which was basically, if you weren't, basically going up soon will be all those videos, which Mark has in a giant backlog behind him. They get captioned and get up there, but he will have them out there so you can watch this planning session for this. But what we are doing is I'm going to you're playing through some of the adventures and keys from the Golden Vault. In particular, we are going through uh, the Prisoner 13 adventure, which is, I believe, actually available for free. I believe they actually made it available, which makes sense as it is the kind of, sort of, basically slightly the tie-in adventure for the D&D movie Honor Among Thieves, which just came out recently, in the last 2 weeks, I believe. I say it as loosely. You do not have to worry about if you have not seen the movie, as there are no spoilers in the adventure, other than the fact that there is a prison located in the north, basically north of the spine of the world, in Icewind Dale, which holds prisoners. That's the only connection that this adventure really has to the movie, and that and the fact that it involves thieves, people breaking into a place, as it were, and then probably most likely breaking back out. Um, well, you never know. 50% is good. So that is the setting for this adventure. Um, Again, basically, just as a quick reminder, if you're just tuning in, haven't been caught one of our streams before, hi, hello, welcome, glad you could be here. We usually stream around this time. Usually, it's closer to 5. So we're going to have to move quickly because I know we have somebody who has a 6:30 cutoff. But what we do here is I am the product lead for a product called LoreLink, which you will see directly below me. That is a GMing toolkit that allows you to take your own adventures or pre-created adventures or however you want to do it, and put them into basically be able to map them out, flesh them out, link them together, and in such a way that you can quickly be able to, during a play session, what's like this, be able to go through the game basically and be able to take notes quickly, look up information quickly, link stuff, go to basically related websites and resources basically relatively quickly. Thus, keeping the amount of time that you're digging through your notes to a minimum, while keeping the amount of times you're interacting with your players at a maximum. So let's go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to unmute I am going to unmute Discord, which means guys need to behave yourselves now because you're actually audible. Um,
What? No.
that's kind of what I figured. So you can go ahead and we can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically rather than the usual having everyone introduce themselves, I'm going to push that off for a slight bit because it makes a little bit more sense a little bit later on. So how this starts off is that we are basically you are a group of thieves. You have been working together for a little basically a decent bit of time. Um, you've done various missions and some small stuff. You've broken into a casino. You've robbed a couple of wealthy nobles here or there. And you've made yourselves you've gotten yourselves a little bit of a name in the right circles, as it were. So and because of that, you've reached that point where people are now approaching you with jobs. And some of the requests that you get are the more greedy type. I want this, I want that. And sometimes you get requests which are more, I want revenge on this, I want revenge on that. But generally there isn't a lot of money in revenge, so you tend to pass on those. But this one you decided to basically this one promised that it's revenge, but it's also revenge that actually has a good payday at the end. So you decided to listen to this one. And as such, basically, you find yourself basically sitting in a tavern, basically in a private room in a tavern above one of the more populated, basically one of the more popular taverns in Baldur's Gate. Um, you're sitting there, and across the table from you is a dwarf. Um, he looks relatively well to do, so so the face is fairly certain that they're basically whatever they're saying, they know what they're they at least have some of the money to back themselves up. Basically, so but they look a little nervous, like they're a little uncomfortable with what they're having to do. But but they seem to overcome that and get to the point. Thank you for hearing me out. My name is Varan Axebreaker, and I have a proposition for you. My clan is located well stolen from us many years ago, but it's sealed in a vault that's magically locked. If you can recover the key, whatever it is, you'll gain the undying gratitude of Clan Axebreaker. And I'll cut you in for a percentage of the recovered treasure, of course. He adds that last bit in as you all kind of stare at him expectantly. Um, and he kind of puts both of his hands flat on the table. The catch here is the person who knows how to open the vault is rotting away in the prison of Revel's End. She proved uncooperative with my people in the past, but I recently discovered the vault where she hid what she stole from us. So, I need you to question her and learn how to open the vault. How you do that is up to you. He looks a little bit, there's a little bit of distaste on that. If you need to spring her from the prison in exchange for this information, please do so. I have a feeling at this point that, however, she's there for her own reasons, but I can provide you a way in, though, as well as the layout of Revel's End and a few useful tricks. Um, yeah, he pulled that point. He pulls out a bluish-looking diamond and kind of sets it on the table, and then he kind of looks around the room, and he's going to look. Basically, he kind of looks at each of you individually. So at this point, you can introduce yourself and what you're basically give yourself your character's name, what they look like, and what their initial assessment of this offer is going to be. We'll start with Michael.
Well, hello. My name is Simeon Ulrich. I'm a tiefling,
I'm
dressed
going
a
to
little
have
bit.
to. Is that your
Yeah.
name? That's right. You're Simeon. Right. That's confusing. Sorry. Keep going.
And I'm dressed a little generically, right? I could be anyone on the street. And if you'll probably note that I change outfits based upon where I am to really try to fit in as much as possible, be invisible, if you will. So I look at this guy, size him up, think about the offer. How much did you say the pay was for this job? Because it seems intriguing, but I want to make sure that it's worth the risk.
Okay. Going to basically 20. Go ahead and introduce your character.
All right. I am playing Seta Fortune Seeker Okolakanu. She is a Goliath, um, and goes by Fortuna for short. Um, I don't really know what she's wearing, so we'll just keep going. You said that our characters have known each other for a little while, yeah?
Yes, you're a no. Basically, you've pulled up a couple of heists in the past.
All right. Seta simply grunts. and waits for the others to do more of the talking.
Okay. Next, we have Tony.
All right, I am playing Simon, a half-elf mage. Appearance is pretty much a mage. He's actually just kind of dressed normally, but he's got a lot of little pouches and pockets everywhere where he holds all of his spellcrafting materials. And he's just kind of sitting there, leaning back a little bit, watching everybody else because he's mainly just along for the ride.
Okay. And last, we have Martine.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of OSHA violations. I mean, hi. People know me as the Face. I'm obviously a bard, and I don't know why they call me the Face, other than maybe I inevitably end up getting smacked in the face for something I've said or saying. But yeah, that'd be me.
What's your take on the dwarf's offer?
Why not? An adventure is an adventure. It gives me some fodder for my next songs, for my next, bar adventure, eventually brawl, probably.
Your next album.
Exactly.
Okay. So, he will look back at Simeon, and basically he'll there'll be a little bit of a sigh at the question you've posed, and then he'll be like, I don't know exactly what's left in the vault at this point. But we can probably say 2% of what's left, minimum of. Actually, let me correct that number because I don't think 2% is exactly right. So let me see. But he kind of hesitates. He's like, so the part of the problem, of course, is if we don't get into the vault, there's not much of any pay. So it's going to be somewhat dependent on making sure that you actually get into the vault.
Glance at my partners. I don't think that getting in is going to be the problem. Getting out with the loot is always when it becomes dangerous and risky.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, again, basically the loot itself isn't hard to get once because the vault we have control of the vault. We have access to the vault. It's just sealed with magic that not even our strongest mages can get past without whatever the key is. It's basically the person who basically this prisoner. Let's just refer to them as prisoner 13, as that's the only real name they'll be going by in the prison. Has been in the prison for a while, probably over 100 years at this point. So, what exactly the key that the vault was sealed with has kind of been a little bit lost. In fact, the vault itself was lost. We only recently managed to find the vault, and thus being basically making it worth our while to attempt to negotiate with prisoner 13. So,
how large is the vault?
I
was imagining something the size of a bank vault, but now I'm picturing something the size of a small chest.
No, this is definitely more of what you would consider a bank vault. So you're probably looking at. Let me. If I had to put it into rough terms, I would probably guess you're looking at it's going to be a mixture of coins. So basically, probably you're looking at a fee of 500, 600 gold. Easy. Plus some other magic items which are probably there. Plus, if you manage to take anything out of the prison, of course, that's up to you. But basically, the major thing we're concerned about is the key.
How magical is all of this?
The prison?
Do we
Very.
believe that there's been some tampering and some evils of any kind?
With the prison or the vault?
Both?
The prison is a well-known prison. Revel's End, basically on the Sword Coast, it's known as a fairly secure prison. There have been, it's not one of those no one has ever broken out of its type levels of prison, but it's known for being a fairly secure vault. And basically, most of the time, people who break out of it, they just end up finding them dead in the basically outside, because there's nothing outside except miles and miles of snow and tundra. So without proper guides or maps, you're probably just wandering the tundra until you end up dead.
So that means that bagpipes would echo beautifully in that building, correct?
Yes, I mean it's made of stone, so
What the?
Fortuna is currently face palming like crazy.
no matter where you are, you could probably hear those bagpipes.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Not wonderful.
Kind of wonderful.
So again, basically, the key would be you bring us the key, we open the vault, you get 2% of whatever's in there. We know the fact that she spent a significant chunk of what's in there. However, we know the fact that there is a decent amount left because she was only able to move so much before.
Got it. So each of us gets 2% plus anything we can liberate from the prison on the way in and out. Seems acceptable.
Each of you gets 2%.
Yeah, of course.
That
Seems to me we're taking 100% of the risk.
not 100% of the risk. We're all the ones dealing with the vault. You're just going into a prison and interrogating a prisoner.
You were getting into the vault yourself. We're just going into prison. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just going into the prison.
What guarantee do they have that they'll let us back out?
I mean, I'm assuming that you get yourself in. Basically, we are helping you get in, and basically we can provide a cover for you that basically could get you out, as long as you haven't done anything to make them suspicious of the identities, the cover we give you when you go in. So from that standpoint, we're taking the risk there. We're the ones basically helping you get in. We have people who know the area. So we know people who know who they are, and so we can get you jobs on the staff. You're not going to have to get yourself arrested and thrown into prison. Plus, we're also providing this, and he kind of taps the diamond that's on the table, and it basically kind of springs to life.
So shiny, like a diamond in the rough.
And basically, what comes out of that diamond is basically kind of floats in the air in front of you. All of you is a map of basically what is labeled to be a map of the prison. It's a fascinating. It's not a diamond. It's a sapphire. Size of a small orange. Places it on the table. He waves his hands over the gem, and a glowing blue image of the building floor appears in the air above it. He taps the gem and the image vanishes. Basically, the sapphire splits into sections and he passes one fragment to each of you. The fragment grows warm in your hand, melts, then vanishes, leaving a warm, tingling sensation behind. Then he says, go ahead and think about the map of Revel's End. And as each of you do that,
Concentrate.
this appears in your, basically, you see this floating in front of you.
Whoa.
You note the fact that you can't see it floating in front of anybody else. So this is something which is appearing to you only.
But is it the same for all of us?
It is the same map to all of you. Basically, you saw all of it. You saw the image when he tapped the sapphire to start with. Then, basically, you each got handed a gem. So, as you can see, this is not something we're asking you to do lightly. We've done some of the research into this. We have connections. We're just at this point looking for a group of people who are not obviously affiliated with us to go in and do the conversation. Obviously, she has some bad blood with my clan, given the fact that, let's say that she absconded with this money a while ago. And we kind of hounded her for it for a while. So, odds are good, she sees one of us. Not going to have any good, basically not going to have any good chance to negotiate. But with you, there's a chance that she'll at least listen, and you can make whatever offers you need to make to get the key from her. Key isn't doing her any good in there, so odds are good she's willing to parlay it for something actually useful to someone who can actually help her. So, just as a note, the dotted yellow line is the guard's patrol path. Red is the cells, and that's a permanent anti-magic field on each of the cells. So, any magic you have going when you walk into the cell is going to end. So if you have any magical disguises, you better have an actual physical backup once you step into the cell, if you're going to get spotted by any of the guards, if you're going into one of the cells. So, 2 questions to you then. 1, are you interested? And 2, if you're interested, what do you want? What do you need to know? So, basically, out of character, this is essentially out of character, assuming you take the job, which it is basically, you can negotiate and do other stuff. I mean, if you say no, we could just go on and do a completely different adventure. It's fine. I've got backup.
And it's all handily there, thanks to Lorling.
Oh, it is. It's all right there. It might be just you versus a Tarask, but you never know. You know, the GM sometimes is nice. In any case, basically, this is essentially the planning phase. So these kind of adventures differ slightly from a normal D&D adventure, as this is basically the adventure expects you to, basically, and I as the GM running it expect you to take some time at this point, ask questions, figure things out, and actually come up with a plan that you feel might survive a little bit of difficulty. Basically, as the saying goes, sometimes you have to make a new plan when the old plan fails, and then make a new plan on top of that, etc., etc. But you're at least attempting to come up with some kind of idea and then execute it and get in there, and then deal with the complications as they come.
Can I just ask a clarifying question about this map?
You can.
The boxes on the bottom, the tower level 1, 2, and roof, is that the tower in the center?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's the hexagon in the middle of the panopticon is what they like to describe it as. that tower has visibility to essentially all of the cells in the area. At least the outside of the cells.
So the first answer is, of course, that I'm interested in the heist. Always interested in a good heist. Love heists. That's my
Fortuna
job.
nods.
That's what I do. I am a little perturbed at the fact that we're breaking into the prison instead of breaking into the vault. Like, I'd rather just break straight into the vault, but, you know, it is what it is. I'm in anti-magic fields. Guard patrol routes. That's no big deal. Does this guy ever get let out into the courtyard? Can we get him into the hospital or something easier to get him out?
Yes.
Like, if we could get him a message so he could like trip and fall and bang his nose and have to go to the hospital, you know.
Basically, visitors can request meetings with prisoners, but those meetings are always supervised with the warden. The prisoners do chores such as emptying latrine buckets and cleaning up after meals. And they exercise in the courtyard daily. When prisoners are injured or fall ill, then they are taken to the prison hospital. So yes, they do spend a decent amount of time outside of their cells. They will end up in basically they will go to the mess hall for food. Basically, the yard is the yard just around the center tower.
Do we know what tasks Prisoner 13 might be tasked with, since you said they work?
Basically, they have been there long enough at this point that they have relatively light duty for the prison. As far as we know, they tend to work on basically they tend to they don't have to do stuff like the privy or things like that. They tend to be like cleaning up things in the hospital, cleaning up in the mess hall. I think they might even be doing some care for animals and things like that in the stables. It's a rotating shift, but I think at this point she's gotten enough favors and things like that that she doesn't have to do basically the nastier jobs. She's caring for the horses, she's not mucking out the stables.
Fair. So when they say they can get us in, they mean get us in as a normal visitor, not as an inmate or a guard or anything. Is that correct?
No, they actually do have some forms of basically some connections. The prison staff rotates out periodically. Basically, we've gotten to know the schedule, and we can capture guards and cooks, and allow you to take their place. The staff is fairly multicultural, shall we say, so it's not a difficulty finding a match for you. So if you basically know you can make our lives easier if you take there is a predominant number of humans and half elves and elves, mostly half humans and half elves. A few dwarves, a couple of halflings, one or two Goliaths working prisons. Not as many Goliath cooks.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't know how to actually cook if I was called upon to do it.
I mean, if you're looking for a more standard entrance, you can they are obligated to if someone comes by who is comes by and asks for sanctuary from the weather, etc., they do have quarters they do put in people into. However, people who do that are kept under close watch for obvious reasons. Um, so, if you want to show up as visitors for the prison, for Prisoner 13, you can, but that makes it a little that means you're but again, any interviews you have with the prisoner are going to be noted. And if she makes any requests, which, like, to be removed from the prison, obviously doing that in front of the warden is a little bit more difficult. And before you ask, the warden is a dwarf as well, so you can't just get by just speaking dwarven and hoping the warden doesn't speak it.
Now, if I'm looking at this right, this building has only 2 entrances.
Correct. There's the docks, and there is the front gate. Both are guarded, obviously.
Yeah, I figured that by the big room beside it that said guards.
Yep.
Do they maintain a fleet of any kind of seagoing vessels?
There's one or two.
Okay.
Like they can basically the docks are generally how they bring in some basically goods. So basically occasionally some prisoners from distant locations are brought in that way. But mostly the docks are for provisions and supplies. New guards and basically employees tend to come in through the front gate, since most of them are local to the Dales. Now, I'd like to make one thing clear. Not that I think you're going to try, but it's a well stocked prison. Basically, there are at least, we think, at least 60 to 80 guards. Not all of them on shift at any given time, but at various states and positions in the prison. They take it seriously. So, also, I don't want to be responsible for a massacre at the prison. So, if we wanted to do that, we could arrange for poisoned food to be brought in and kill off all the guards, and that's not how we work. We're here to get our rightfully owned treasure back, and we're willing to negotiate with the person who took it from us and give them something in exchange for what they have. However, I'm not basically asking you to go in and murder your way through a bunch of guards who are just doing their business, keeping a bunch of basically other criminals in line. There are lots of nasty people in that prison, and they deserve to be there. Just wanted to
Yep.
make that much clear.
And so this particular guy that we're dealing with, are we trying to get him out or just the key?
We want the key. If they want basically what the price they want for the key is up to you to deal with. If it is something absolutely extreme, then you may have to come back to me and talk. But we're thinking most likely that they'll either want something basically brought into them or they'll want out. They've been in there a while, and basically we're fairly certain that they're kind of running some stuff from in there, but it's still a fairly solid prison without an easy way out. It doesn't matter how good your spy network is, or you can't just smuggle yourself out in a box.
Yeah.
Looks at Solid Snake.
Huh? What was that noise?
So what's the plan? How do we want to get into this place? Or more importantly, back out? That we're going to get in.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get us in,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to pretend to be.
Guards?
Pretending to be guards would be ideal.
Yeah. Well, as discussed, I don't know how I'm gonna disguise myself as a cook.
I could disguise myself as an inmate, guard,
I could
nurse,
disguise
maybe, but
myself as a counselor. A chaplain? No. I don't know.
ooh, chaplain. Do they have those there?
Yeah, like some kind of like ministry chaplain, cleric, monk, something or another.
They have occasional ones that do show up. They don't have a on-site basically cathedral of any kind, but there are basically they do basically occasionally there are some missionaries who show up who are wishing to give guidance to the misguided, as it were.
Do we know whether Prisoner 13 has a specific god or goddess that she worships?
The only goddess that god or goddess we're aware that they worship is one that will give them what they want.
So no, is what I hear you say.
They are religious in the fact that they believe gods exist and therefore they're not to be crossed. But beyond that, given how they have acted, I do not believe they are a strong follower of any particular god or goddess.
Hmm.
Okay. So this being a prison, it looks like there's really only two ways in and out. There's the front entrance that goes past the stables, and then there's the back entrance that goes to the dock. Other than that, it would be over the wall, I would presume. The courtyard. Maybe is the courtyard the only outdoor space that prisoners have any access to?
Yes. There
So
really
even the
isn't.
corner guard towers are enclosed.
There really isn't that much else out. There isn't that much else out there. It's kind of built into the side of a cliff.
Hmm.
It's about 160 feet. Basically, that dock is 160 feet down.
And aside from the anti-magic within the cells, how do they prevent magic use within the rest of the space?
They don't have any particular precautions against it elsewhere.
Hmm.
I mean,
What, what are the doors of the cells made of?
the doors in the cells are. Second. He kind of closes his eyes and basically goes through some basically each door is made of reinforced iron, held shut with an arcane lock spell. Prison personnel can open these doors and the doors and basically in hatches normally. A locked door, you really can basically you might be able to shoulder through it, but most other people can't. You're gonna need to take your axe to it if you're desperate enough to try to go through it. In game terms, basically, you know the fact that is basically an AC of 19, a damage threshold of 10, then 30 hit points. Meaning, if you don't do over 10 points, you're not doing any damage to it. and you have to basically do 30 points of damage.
Oof. Okay.
Do note that basically, as I know, you were talking about outside spaces. Everything that is not inside the courtyard, or basically inside a cell, is cold. Basically, you're talking Alaska, northern Canada, basically below 0 degrees Fahrenheit.
What season is it right now?
That's probably fall.
Okay.
So the most important thing that we need to do is have either a set of horses or even better, a ship prepared to, or a boat prepared to take us away that we can get to.
We can basically, he kind of nods, like, we can have a boat that's a little further out, basically waiting for a signal. You can show up on the dock and shine a light, 2 flashes, 1 flash, 2 flashes. We'll come
I
pick
feel like
you
the
up.
guard tower might see that, but yes.
I don't know, like looking at the map, the guard towers are pretty far from the dock and they're 160 feet up. Well, actually,
yeah.
how tall are the guard towers themselves?
The guard towers are um, 2 stories tall.
On top of being 160 feet up from the dock.
Correct.
So the guard towers are all open to the air, I assume.
Guards are wearing cold weather gear. But yes. The answer to your question of are they going to basically, if we show up with it, basically they will likely see a boat approaching. Yes. And they'll likely basically that will raise suspicion levels at that point. So we'll be close enough that we could come in, get you, and get out before they could actually get anyone down to the dock to actually do anything. So as long as the prison isn't already in a state of high alert, mostly all you're going to do is get them to do a prisoner count and check. They're not going to automatically sink any ship that approaches.
But by then we would be sailing away.
Correct.
I like using the boat as a getaway vehicle.
Makes sense to me.
Now, the one thing that keeps bugging me that I'm sorry, I was going over uses of bat guano in my head during part of this conversation. Um, I assume somebody has already talked to the people in the prison about having the opportunity to speak to this prisoner.
Yes. I mean, we could arrange a meeting with prisoner 13 anytime we wanted. But we have a feeling that if they request to be let out, that doesn't do us much good for actually basically that just doubles security around them and doesn't actually get us any closer to getting the key. And again, us talking to her isn't going to do any good either, as they're not going to be too interested in talking to our clan.
And what got her put in here in the first place?
A life that wasn't a life basically a life ill spent. If you're looking for particulars, the best I can give you is the fact that we know the fact that she stole from the clan and basically took that money and kind of ran and used it to set up their own network of spies and smuggling and other things like that. Eventually, it ran short. Basically, eventually she came up short. Either they ran out of either she ran out of money, or basically someone in her organization betrayed her, or basically something else happened. But she got caught, thrown into prison.
So it wasn't just stuff that was done to your clan.
No, she used us as she used us as her bankroll. Let's put it that way. Basically our clan chased after her, but we weren't the ones who caught her in the end.
What languages does she speak? Excuse me.
We know she speaks Dwarven. We suspect she speaks some others.
Solid question, though.
Probably speaks Common. Likely, we're going to guess that she speaks Undercommon, given some of the associates she's had. Beyond that, it's up to you. Basically, it's could be anything. Maybe she knows Giant. Maybe she knows Goblin. Maybe Elvish. Maybe Orc.
I just was curious because you said the warden is a dwarf.
Yes.
Do you know if he speaks any other languages?
She speaks several languages.
Oh, she. I guess that would make sense for a warden.
Yeah.
So are we going to go in as the same thing or different things? And assuming different things so that we draw a little bit less attention, which one of us is going to interface with the prisoner primarily to negotiate the deal?
Isn't that what the face is for?
Yeah. Stares at the face with intent.
Hmm.
Did the
I
face-
mean,
okay.
I suppose.
I mean, I'm assuming you've got the best charisma.
Yeah. I just need a plan as to what I'm telling them as to why we need to speak to that specific prisoner. In mass. Or you know what? We're instead of splitting, what if we said we were like a news crew doing some story about the vicious crimes that they've committed?
Oh no.
You'd be granted supervised access in the meeting room with them.
Oh shoot, yeah. Poop. Okay. Does prisoner 13 like music? We could do some music therapy.
I suspect she does.
There we go. That would get me in the room with her.
Again, probably supervised access.
Well,
in the
but it's
meeting?
therapy because I can argue for patient prisoner
Patient.
privileges.
How closely monitors the mess hall?
There are guards posted in there.
But you could probably have a quiet conversation in the middle of the room.
Yeah, one would assume. There's
What about the counselors are not supervised, I assume.
the counselors
That's
are
true.
not supervised, but they're usually they are not basically they are basically there are usually guards in the room when they're handling uh the going over pardons and such things like that when they are.
Uh-huh.
What are the counselors' duties?
The counselors are there mostly to provide legal.
So they're legal counsel.
They are basically they perform a committee, the parole committee known as the Absolution Council. There are 10 counselors in total, but they are rarely all there at any given point.
So it's always the same 10 people.
It varies. They each members of the Lord's Alliance assigns their own representative.
So that's how that works. All right. So it might be hard to get in as one of them.
Yeah.
You would have to be confident in your imitation in one of the existing counselors.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
We don't have time for that.
All right. I am halfway inclined to go in as a prisoner.
Are you sure that's a good idea? Because what if they insist on keeping you imprisoned?
Oh, I can get out of prison. I'm not worried about getting me out of prison.
Mm.
And we're just all rolling off the thought that 13 wants to be let out in the first place.
We didn't say let out. We just are trying to get her reasonably alone so we can talk to her. Because the whole point is getting to a place where we can talk to her without being overheard. I don't know though, but
if she
sorry,
said she wants something like, I don't know, a banana or something, we can have basically we can get stuff smuggled in, or we could set it up so you can smuggle it in to her.
I feel like maybe we're trying to do too much at once. Maybe rather than trying to get all of us in all at once, maybe we need to just do an initial meet and greet with 13, come back out, and then go in to provide whatever is needed and or make the exfil.
I hadn't even thought of that. And I'll be right back, y'all.
Okay, Face, what's your name again?
Face.
Okay, Face. What is your ability to perform to pretend to be someone? I can help you with the costuming, but I wonder if we can just get you in as one of the counselors.
My performance is a +10.
Yeah, we got this. Okay, so I can disguise myself. I can't disguise you. Oof.
Well, you could disguise yourself and do the performance aspect, and I could be I don't know, your aide, your butler, your whatever, and I can do all the talking. You can act all hoity-toity, and I could do I could be your.
Feel like did the counselors have secretaries?
Yes.
There you go. I could be your secretary. Are any of the counselors particularly stuck up and would make their secretaries do all the work?
Most of the
I like where you're going.
There are very few of the counselors who are known to be happy people. But
Okay, so maybe we do that.
In the interests of gathering more information.
Basically, go in. I'll pretend to be the counselor. Face can be my secretary. We'll disguise ourselves, walk in, whatever, and we'll have a meet with 13, figure out what he wants, and then leave because there's no expectation that won't work, and then kind of go from there. Of course, if we get caught, we're going to need you to come in after us, but you know.
Detail.
Again?
I know how
You
to make
engine
them
our
let me out.
right.
All I have to do is start playing
we can
bagpipes in the middle of
arrange
the
for
mess
them.
hall.
We can arrange for them to be there and just leave when necessary.
Yeah.
They can be prison. We can set them up as prison guards, so that
Perfect.
they are closer by in case you need them.
Yeah, you could be the prison guards. That's perfect. I love it.
You could even could we set them up to be the prison guards that are there to supervise? Because it's all supervised and crap. Could they be the ones in charge for supervising our quote visit?
We don't know exactly which ones are responsible for which.
All right. So Muscle and Tech will be the guards. And then Face and I will go in as the counselors so we can have a quiet meeting with them and figure out what happens. Then I look at our the guy hiring us. You can manage communication back and forth once we find out what we need to do. Yes?
If you could get a message back out to us, yes.
Oh, we'll probably walk back out. And then go in again under a different guise later. I think this is a good plan. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, it was a good plan until you doomed it.
Ooh, 2 pairs of sending stones. I love it.
Yeah, what's I was clicking on it hoping they had information. What's the range on those?
The range on the sending stones is.
That's perfect.
Let me double check that. That's one thing I didn't link. They come in pairs. When you touch one stone, you can use axe to send the sending cell from it to the bearer of the other stone. Range is unlimited across any distance and even to other planes of existence.
Wow.
However, if they are on a different
Holy
plane,
cow.
if they are on a different plane, it's a 5% chance that the message doesn't arrive.
This is all on one plane, though, thus
We're
far,
good. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds amazing.
Let's do it.
Okay.
We're going on a trip in our favorite rocket ship.
Okay. So he will arrange identities for Simon and Fortuna as guards. and he will
I'll
provide
also
you
need
the name.
pictures of the guy.
They will provide you information about one of the counselors. Basically, they pick a human, as they are basically they offer you you have a human. You have there's a human, a halfling, and a dragonborn who are not currently in residence. Actually, there's also there's probably also an elf, and there's also a dwarf as well, who are not in residence.
Any of those except for the halfling should be okay.
Okay.
I don't speak any of those languages though, so maybe Dragonborn. We'll go for the Dragonborn.
No,
And I'll assume that nobody else there speaks.
They all speak.
They'll
common.
speak common.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just speak common, or I'll speak badly enunciated infernal. Maybe people will assume that's draconic if I have to.
Okay.
All right. We will disguise self as the guy.
Okay. Note the duration on the spell.
Yep, it's 1 hour.
Wait. How close are we to this prison?
Oh, well, I'm going to cast the spell when we arrive before I step out of whatever our transit is.
Okay,
Assuming it's some
just
sort
checking.
of coach or something.
Just real quick, I'd like to point out: are these meetings normally held in their cells or in a room outside their cells?
They are usually held in the meeting room.
Okay.
They're in the meeting room, not in the counselor's little area.
The counselor's that is the counselor's quarters.
Ah, little quarters. Okay.
They do not have
Cool.
any particular place. The meeting room is essentially the all-purpose council room,
Yep.
prisoner meet room, etc., etc.
So the counselor's quarters are accessed through the mess hall. Is that correct?
It's the pad. Basically, it's on the other side of the hall from the mess hall.
Okay. It's not super clear how you get in and out of there.
Okay. So,
how much bleed out is there of those anti-magic fields from the cells? Is he going to be able to walk through there to get to the meeting room?
He should be fine. Basically, the cells open into the courtyard. And they are fairly solid on basically making the magic radiates inward from the cell walls and bars.
Just there's some sloppy mages out there. I just wanted to make sure.
Understandable. Okay. So you will arrive. Basically, the guards will arrive. Basically, and will be sent to basically to the barracks, where basically you will be met by one Eula Dargaria, who is a real guard's guard, as it were. You have been warned about her and know the fact that she is a no-nonsense stickler for the rules. So pretty much you will get brought in he has at least managed to get you basically 2 new guards. So the people who basically, so you're expected to not know the rules, but you do get a pretty strict talking to. Basically, you're spending your first couple of hours listening to a long lecture over basically what you can and cannot do with the prisoners, such as basically talking to the prisoners for any other duties other than prison business. Um, basically, if you happen to be of a race which provides magical abilities, do not cast spells inside the basically do not cast spells inside the prison, as that will be taken badly unless you are been given permission by the warden to be casting that spell. And in a situation, it is known to be casting. A reason for that spell to be being cast. If you happen to recognize one of the prisoners, do not refer to them by name. They have a number that is their only designation. Outside, basically, and then you have long things over how long patrols are, etc., etc. So you're sitting through all of that as basically as the 2 of you approach basically the face and the sneak approach from outside. So let's go ahead and shift maps here. We will put people essentially where they are. Okay. You're in the armory. Or no, you're in the barracks. The barracks are. No, it's at the barracks. The barracks are. Nope, those are the barracks. Okay. I forgot to label my map in Lorelink. That would have made my life easier.
10-minute warning, Mark.
Yes, sir. Thank you. R19. Oh, the barracks are in the second floor of the tower in the center. Okay. So you are getting lectured and being right now you're nervous and or other reactions are just kind of disguised as being understandable for being new on the job and being kind of yelled at by the guard chief. So you basically Simeon and the face, you show up at the front gate. I'm going to assume that you have changed to basically into the counselor. You can basically we'll call him Rigoris Tam is the name of the council you are impersonating. You are the counselor from Neverwinter. So basically, you're actually we'll go with basically. Actually, we'll go with Amphal because we can pick the smaller town. That makes more sense. So you are the counselor from Amphal. And you arrive outside the gate, and you are obviously hailed by, basically spotted by guards, and there is at least a couple of guards to which you are. They have their crossbows not necessarily pointed at the cabin, basically at the carriage, but they are basically they have several of them, basically kind of loosely held by sides. There are more guards up on the tower that you can see. So
Right.
I don't know if you are meaning this, but all I have is a black square.
oh, it doesn't. Oh, okay.
Correct. Sweet. I will clutch my cloak close about me, usher my secretary in front of me, roll my eyes at every delay.
You'll kind of get kind of a halt and identify yourself at the front gate.
To which I will do all the talking.
Okay.
I will introduce him with every single title that he's got and to make him, build him up as important and, basically act as though I'm under the thumb of an asshole. That is my boss.
Sorry, Sir Regorius. I mean, we did not know Regorius was. You were not scheduled to be here. The other three counselors, basically, there are three other counselors here. I was not aware of any request for an additional counselor.
New information has come to light.
Give me a persuasion check. Okay. Well, okay. So basically, we're not aware of this. We should come on. Basically, come in. We will. You know the way to your quarters. We will make sure the warden knows that you are here. Is there something you require immediately, or is basically do you need time to organize your things, and do you require a full meeting of all the counselors? Should we get the other counselors as well?
I wave him
No,
off.
no, we will be fine. This is a preliminary gathering of information as things have come to light.
I start heading to my quarters and glance backward, waiting for her to finish the explanation.
I finish as
Okay.
fast as humanly possible and trot behind him,
Okay.
acting as though I'm going to be in trouble for having delayed trotting behind him.
All right, sneak. Give me deception. Obviously.
All right, you want
for
deception.
being disguised, but...
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, you brush your way in through the door. Wow, they actually. Use doors, you must never restrict use the names for sure. Okay. No door. So you are ushered inside. Nope, I just moved the door. Ah. What layer am I on? So you come inside, and you're heading directly for the counselor's quarters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Minimize our possible interactions.
Okay.
Don't need too much interaction. People might start to see through the disguise.
Actually, you are basically likely going to be basically expected to go through the guard room
Mm-hmm.
into the mess hall,
Makes sense.
into a quarter. Now, how do you pick which one you're going into?
All right. We don't know which quarters belong to this specific person.
Obviously, I do not believe you have any way of doing that, no.
I don't. Oh, there we are. There's where we are. Okay, so we don't know this. So I guess is anybody watching us? Walk down the corridor.
I mean, there is a guard on basically. There's at least one guard probably following somewhat behind you, trying to make
Frick.
sure if you actually need anything.
Once we get to the room, is standard protocol to leave us in the room?
Yeah, there's basically he's mostly acting as a glorified page essentially, because he's not quite certain what you need or what's going on. So he's
Are
making
these doors locked?
No.
And we know that there's 5 people in residence right now.
3 people. Basically,
So-
you know there are
so-
at least basically 3 counselors currently in residence.
So we've got a better than 50% chance of capturing the right door, or of capturing an empty room,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
but it might not be the correct one. So
All
I'm
right,
gonna
y'all, I
walk
gotta
straight.
bounce. Good luck
Yep.
to you, okay?
Good luck, thanks. I'm gonna head straight for. I don't know if you can see me clicking on trying to open this door. It's locked. I'm gonna head straight for this one and go to the left-hand side.
The third one from the left or the second?
A second one on the left.
Okay.
Turn to the guard, wave him off, open the door, and step through like I belong there.
Okay.
And I hope it's empty.
Okay. It is in fact empty. I mean, it is
All right.
empty in the fact that it does not contain any other occupants in it.
Yep.
It does in fact have desks and
Yep.
basically a bed.
Once we're both in, close the door and figure out if we're in the right room or not. And if we can find any information about which is actually supposed to be my room.
They are basically the rooms are basically the room doesn't seem to have any particular identifying features to it. It just has a bed, a desk with a matching chair, a chest which is empty, and a wall hooks for hanging clothes.
Okay, so it's not as anybody. There's no like identifying paperwork or any pictures on the wall or anything like that.
Correct.
Yeah, that's fine.
Both of you can give me
Hang up
insight
my cloak,
checks.
have a seat. All right, we're good until they come for us. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I wonder if they would know if I recast the spell while in this room. Probably not.
I will stand at the corner by the door listening for movement or chatter.
Okay. It is relatively silent for now. How long are you waiting?
If we're gonna keep this charade up, we just can't wait too long before you quote get impatient with them.
Correct. After about 15 minutes, I say, if they haven't shown up, I'll send you to figure out what's taking so long.
Okay.
Sounds
So,
good.
Fortuna.
Yes.
Basically, we'll stick you and you basically will have you run yourself and the mage, as it were. Simeon.
All right.
Or Simon. Simon and Simeon. So basically you are basically after you've gone through the lectures at this point, and they're basically pretty much getting ready to kind of assign you to a basically assign you to a job. Are you going to attempt to manipulate this in any way, or are you going to basically just take whatever jobs they assign you?
What can we see out of these windows? Like if I look out of the window, what do I see?
A lot of snow. Basically, actually, no. Those windows you can see into the courtyard, so you can essentially see um, all the cells. Basically, there's the prison yard. Assuming you basically arrived morning-ish, there's probably several prisoners wandering around out in the courtyard area, kind of trudging kind of laps around around the exercise yard, as it were. Maybe some of them are lifting weights, working, exercising. Someone, at least one person, is jogging. Some are just leaning against the wall.
So I can see into the courtyard in the upper right of the main map.
Yes.
Can I see the cell doors?
The courtyard is the center of the courtyard is the center area. Basically, that is between the tower in the center, and the
The doors?
mm-hmm.
Okay, so the courtyard that's labeled courtyard.
Oh, wait, never mind. That is the courtyard. Sorry. Okay, yes, that is the courtyard over there. You can't basically, so you can probably just barely, you're on the second floor of this tower, so you're on the first floor of this tower. So you can probably just barely see over the walls into the courtyard. Yeah.
Okay. And is that like a spiral stair at the center of the tower in the middle?
Correct.
Okay. I volunteered to stand guard on the tower roof.
Okay. Basically, that one is a fairly easy one to volunteer for, as that one involves being outside. So there isn't a whole lot of competition for it. Go ahead and give me a base persuasion roll. Not going to be a difficult check.
How do I do that? Just click the +1.
If you have,
yes.
Okay.
Whatever you just did, that was correct.
Okay.
Okay. Basically, you're able to have you kind of basically request for it. They kind of look you up and down, and they kind of, all right, if you want to be outside, okay. We'll assign you some of the other. Basically, we'll assign you some of the other guards that you're Basically to kind of give you a tour for out there and point out what's going on in the prison. So you and he will get moved up to the roof, as it were. There'll be at least 2 other guards up there with you. Okay. So one of the guards will kind of be like, okay, so here's this is the tower roof. As you can see, you can look down into the cells over there. Basically, the cells all around us all have basically have an anti-magic field around them, and he starts just basically kind of boringly going through and pointing out places. While the other guard just kind of tries to basically kind of slowly kind of moves around the tower on this and keeps changing which side he's standing on as the wind changes direction, as he desperately attempts to not stand directly into the wind. Rubbing his hands together, kind of hopping up and down, and kind of briefly kind of cursing under his breath. Did you ask anything, or do you pretty much just let him kind of drone on?
One moment. Fortuna is listening to him, and meanwhile, Simon is also listening and taking a lot of mental notes, because I assume Simon is smarter than Fortuna.
Yes.
And
Simon has better broad knowledge. You're intelligent. You are decently intelligent, just only in certain areas.
Sure. Curious, from like the very left side of that tower roof, which seems to have an open side, is that true? Like,
Yep, the sides are open up here.
Okay. Can, like, from here, can I see down the corridor to the door to the meeting room?
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially see.
And so I assume, like, the similar is true, like, standing here, I can kind of see down toward the armory, et cetera, et cetera?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Simon will ask, you said there's anti-magic fields on the cells. Are there any anywhere else? Like, just curious.
Because the guard just kind of shakes his head and says, nah. And he basically can't have those anywhere else. Most of the locks around here work with magic. So if we had an anti-magic field anywhere else, kind of defeat the purpose.
Well, that makes sense to me. But if any of the prisoners have magic abilities, how do you keep them from casting spells in the, like, when they're exercising or whatever?
We're not too concerned about them casting spells. Anything like spell books or things like that have been taken away from them. And we make note of those with sorceress abilities and things like that. So there's generally a guard. So basically, there's generally at least 1 to 2 guards nearby who can recognize that sort of thing. So you start casting, people start shouting, doesn't end too well for you. So basically, if you see someone, basically, do you happen to, basically, I don't know if you happen to have any magical ability, But those of you who do generally get stuck on kind of watch duty. It's pretty much someone starts doing that. Your job is to start shouting. Basically, one of it's going to word get involved, and then you might end up in high alert. And that things just get messy once things are in high alert.
How often do high alerts happen?
It's been a while since we've had to have one. Someone basically, we had one person who thought they could get away just by basically making themselves invisible. It didn't end too well. Once we noticed that they weren't actually in their cell and they didn't come back in after exercising, the warden started the high alert, and once she does that, all of us can see invisible. That was a surprise for the guy.
I bet so. Jeez.
That was actually kind of funny. The guy thought he would be even more invisible if, stripped down to his skivvies. So,
oh no.
Yeah, basically that was a good laugh that day. Well, we had a good laugh. I don't think he did.
Which prisoner was that? Is he still here?
No, that's the funny thing. He only had like a couple of months left. It got extended to a year or so after he did that, but he got let out. I have no idea where he thought he was going to go. Maybe warm inside the cells and inside, but you get outside the walls too far, and that boy was gonna. Well, he's gonna regret only having his skivvies on. Let's just put it that way. Maybe.
Yeah, I would think so. So who's the worst prisoner? Like which one?
The worst one?
Yeah.
I mean, most of them keep their heads down for the most part, but if I had to pick one in particular, he kind of lets his gaze kind of sweep around the around all the cells. Pirouette's probably the worst. Kind of points. Actually, doesn't say pirouette. He says prisoner 4, probably the worst. That's the tiefling. He kind of points to someone who's in a cell with a guard in front of it currently.
That's a bad one.
Like that one, Thieves Guild leader, for what I've heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're not. They're in here for a life sentence, and they know it. So they feel like their job is to make our lives miserable at every turn. And they're a tiefling, which means the fact that they've got some minor magic. They know better than to try anything too extreme, but let's just put it this way: at least somebody. Basically, there's been several times when basically someone's come back off shift and suddenly their uniform was filthy just as the warden was coming by, and they swore it was clean, and they happened to be by their cell. Basically. So now they spend a lot of times inside their cell. Because that way we don't have to worry about whatever stupid cantrip they happen to be casting today. But someone's got to take them to the mess hall and back, and that's always a rough time. Just don't piss off the warden, or you'll get stuck on there. You get stuck on prisoner 4 duty.
So not every prisoner has their own guard, is what you're saying?
No. Most of the time, most of the people in here are like, you don't get sent here unless you've done something to really piss off one of the communities. Otherwise, they'd keep you local. But you considered enough of it. You basically consider enough of a nuisance or a hazard to be kept in prison. They send you up here to us. But most people don't stay here for too long. 4 is one of the longest ones here.
Well, I guess so, if they're in for life.
Yep. And basically, pretty much, we just give them a new number. When another one comes in, we give them a new number. So 4 is one of our originals. Newest one, probably that one over there. Points out Basically points out a human. That's $2.99. They're in for. Hey, Frank, what's $2.99 in for again? I don't know. Kind of hopping back and forth. I think kind of kind of basically tucks away from the corners, basically from the corner of the tower, and kind of basically makes his way over and looks down. I think I heard $2.99 was think he robbed a noble. I think he had Baldur's Gate. I think he stole a noble's carriage, I wanna say. Took a joyriding. Ended up wrecking the carriage, killing one of the horses.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, no, not his brightest move. But that's the kind of stuff that ends you up here. Just something simple. They would have kept him in Baldur's Gate. But most of the prisoners keep their head down. Nothing too unusual. I mean, probably the weirdest one here is 13. That one, I swear, is just kind of hanging out here. Nobody actually even knows what 13 is here for anymore. Basically, they didn't do something as fancy and basically as dramatic as 4, but they've been here a while. Well, they're 13, but Warden probably knows. Warden's got the paperwork, but the Warden doesn't particularly care for us poking our noses into it, so everyone places their bets. But 13 just pretty much keeps to themselves and doesn't cause anybody any trouble and just kind of hangs out in their cell.
Well, okay. Well, how long is the shift on the roof here?
If you're unlucky, you get the full 8 hours up here. Frank groans. But most of the time, they try to limit the tower people to 2 hours. Unless you're a race which doesn't care about the cold, in which case you get stuck up here the full 8 because, hey, you don't care.
Right.
It's the same as anywhere else.
Q20 checking to see if her race has cold resist.
I don't believe you have any particular.
I'm not seeing it. And I don't know about Tony's character.
Oh, Tony's character definitely does not have.
Okay. Okay. Well.
Actually, you are mountain born. You don't suffer penalties for being in high altitudes and have resistance to cold damage.
Oh.
You take
Sweet.
half. Basically, you take half from cold. So basically,
okay.
It feels brisk up here. Is probably the worst that it feels like. Like you've got cold weather gear on, and you're just like, okay.
It's cool.
Simon is desperately trying not to do exactly what Frank is doing. Simon keeps wanting to cast. Basically, he's like, it's just a small fire spell. All right, so going back to our counselors. Basically, after about 10 minutes or so, you'll hear a knock on your door.
I will answer the door.
Okay.
And figure out what's up.
I will pretend to be engrossed in some reading, shuffling through papers.
Okay. Basically, standing outside the door is actually a human. I misidentified their race. Basically, is a human wearing a red robe with gold trim and basically a ring with 7 tiny keys hanging from it in one pocket. In one pocket. Okay, not hanging out. So basically, Basically, someone basically wearing a robe, sitting basically kind of calmly stares at you. There is basically as a little bit of basically you can see that basically they look a little basically what's the right word basically they're staring calmly at you, but there's basically like a little bit of basically you can see a little bit of a stain of something kind of hanging basically at the basically at the top of their robe that they're kind of unconsciously smoothing out. Basically the robes are a little bit wrinkled in places, and they're like, "So, what brings you to Revel's End, Counselor? I was not expecting you."
I give the same line regarding like we have new information. It's sensitive and time pressing, and we need to talk to prisoner. What did we say? 13?
13.
13.
What information would that be? Prisoner
Classified.
13. She gives you a look. This is my prison. I not expected to keep. Basically, I'm not basically not usually one for keeping. Basically, having one for secrets being kept from me here. Give me a deception check or persuasion, your choice.
Deception or persuasion? Persuasion. That doesn't matter either way. Lost my screen. There it is.
Oof.
That's not awesome. Can I get some help, dude, Mr. Hoity-toity?
Yeah. You need some persuasion help.
She just kind of crosses her
I will.
arms. Basically, her gaze kind of switches. Basically,
Oh no. Can we talk to this guy yet, or what?
Depends on what you're doing here.
We're here to meet with 13. Like, did you not get the paperwork? We sent it in advance.
Give me deception.
Ooh.
There you go. She sighs. How long ago did you send it?
Couple days. We expected you'd have everything ready for us to meet with him when we arrive.
I believe 13's gender is female, by the way.
Correct. She just kind of stares at you and is just like, well, no, the paperwork did not arrive, so why don't you tell me what the paperwork said?
I have been instructed to interview 13 for information about past crimes, to ask specific questions.
Are you being deliberately vague?
Look, this was authorized at the highest levels. The paperwork was sealed. I'm not speaking to the warden, am I?
Are you?
That's not who is in the room currently. I'm assuming it's just a guard.
Give me an insight check.
Oh crap.
This is a person wearing a robe. I will give you the fact that this is not a person wearing a. Hey, face, give me an insight check. This is not somebody wearing a guard outfit. You know that.
Ah, okay.
So this is either another counselor or or it is the warden. One of the two.
We were instructed to find evidence, find the location of some specific evidence related to their crimes.
This is
Even I wasn't given
unusual.
a lot of details about what the crimes themselves are. Specifically, just the questions I'm supposed to ask. It all seems very hush-hush. I don't understand why.
Are you going to tell me the fact that I am not allowed in the room? How many people will
It's
be in the room?
myself, my assistant, the prisoner, ideally. If you must have a guard, I would understand. But I would prefer it be a new guard if possible. Just reasons.
Frowns slightly. What particular reasons?
Wouldn't want somebody who might have possibly, on the utmost chance, have developed a relationship with 13 yet.
This is highly unusual and very annoying, and I will be having words with
It is
your
very annoying. I
government.
didn't really want to be here.
I do not like my prison's order being disrupted like this. I assure you that we will be having words with your government over this.
Be my guest. I will even help you file the paperwork.
Fine, so we will prepare the meeting room for prisoner 13. We will have a... Yes?
My secret to deception is to just mostly tell the truth. So many things that I said were absolutely true.
You are correct. And basically, at this point, she doesn't have. Basically, she is annoyed and basically annoyed at what's going on, but she doesn't have any particular reason to be suspicious of what you're doing. So far, you're not doing anything which is going to, basically, outside of maybe assassins, I guess. But she's like,
Yeah, right.
We will basically you will have your guards in the room, and there will be some stationed outside. I assure you that the walls are thick enough. I don't like this.
Thank you.
I will also be nearby.
Thank you.
Okay. So Simon and actually, yeah, what we'll do is we'll go a little bit longer than we will call it. Because it is getting close to 7:30, which I know is the extreme end of people's time range.
Yep.
So we will have a good stopping point coming up here soon. And I'm moving the door and not the people. They put the doors on the
How
token
frustrating.
later. I'm not 100% certain why. But... So basically, you guys at the top of the tower will note the fact that some guards basically a guard comes running into the bottom of the tower. You can hear some shouts and other stuff, and basically you can see another guard going off towards one of the cells. That this one he indicated was prisoner 13's cell. Then another guard will end up in your basically coming up to kind of gasping at the top of the tower as he's obviously run up the stairs and says, "Boss wants the two of you. Says they're basically they need the two of you for a prisoner guard interview duty. You're requested in the meeting room. Come with me."
Yes, sir.
Basically, Frank mutters something about lucky ducks. You end up coming coming down off the tower and being escorted to the meeting room. There are several you are in the door. The door is not locked behind you. It is shut. But you do note the fact that there are at least 2 guards outside the door and the warden.
The warden being a dwarf or a human?
Human. I was incorrect about them being a dwarf. There's a reason why.
Ah.
But the warden, who is in fact the person who came to your door, is standing outside. So basically, prisoner 13 is brought in to the room. They are not particularly shackled in any sort of way. Basically, they are shackled until they are brought up to the room. Then they are essentially there are tracks in the floor, which basically everyone is hooked into, and then basically they use that for going from room to room. But once they actually get to the room, they are unshackled, and basically essentially not pushed inside, but basically they're indicated to go inside, and the door is shut behind them. And the last thing you see before the door shuts is basically the annoyed face of the warden, kind of locking eyes with you, Simon or Simeon.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There we go. I can see the room now. So at this point, I glance around the room, and it's just people I recognize and 13, correct?
Correct.
Very good. 13. Please allow me to introduce.
Long rectangular table, single chair alongside, and basically 3 similar chairs, basically on the opposite side. And there's a hatch that opens into the roof.
Is it obviously locked?
The hatch?
Yeah.
It has the arcane symbols on it that you've seen elsewhere. That indicates an arcane lock.
Okay.
Go ahead, you were saying, Simeon?
So 13. You probably recognize me as your counselor, but I assure you that I am not. We are here to help you. She what?
She kind of gives you a kind of a look of basically just kind of a slightly curious look. Not basically, she doesn't look particularly threatened, just looks kind of curious.
The 4 of us are here to help you. In return for what assistance you require, we have been sent for information that you may be able to provide. If I may, please introduce my colleague here, and I will defer to Face, who would like to ask you some questions.
Well, hello. How are you today? I don't have to be rude.
Doing fine. They didn't serve my favorite food today in the cafeteria, in the mess hall. Which means the fact that I only got a half meal because you can only eat so much of that. I haven't
That's
had
unfortunate.
haven't had any ale in a while, and now I'm being dragged a bunch of random 4 people who say they're here to help me, which seems highly unlikely.
I pull a bottle of ale out of my pocket. Set it on the table. And I'm like, well, I'm sure there are things we could make your life a little bit easier with. In a gesture of good faith, I serve them a cup of ale. So, what would you know?
She kind of glances at it and glances at you and just kind of says, I have no particular reason to trust any drink you offer me.
I will take a sip of it first and then hand her the cup again.
Oh, come on now. You don't think there are magics against poisons and things like that? Come on.
Well, if you don't want the fucking ale, you don't have to fucking drink it.
She just kind of laughs. Now, that's a little bit more honest, at least.
Now, what do you know about a vault? And a key?
Give me a insight check.
Insight.
Everybody in the room could give me an insight check. I don't know anything about a vault.
Now, since I have the ring of truth, I get to roll with advantage, correct?
Correct. Okay. She just kind of, yeah.
I'm assuming she's lying.
Yes, she is lying.
I will look at her and I'm like, no. Who's not being truthful?
She kind of shakes her head. I've been asked about a vault before. Didn't tell them anything. Why would I tell you something?
Well, maybe they didn't have the right arguments.
She kind of glances over towards the guards. Then Miska kind of shrugs. I doubt you have the right kind of arguments.
Everybody has a price.
A price? So you're offering me something in exchange for a key?
Well, what do you think? I'm a thug or something? I'm a musician. Like, I can play some Nickelback for an hour straight. Would you prefer me torture you?
You kind of the dwarven band Nickelback, known for their cheap metal. She just kind of groans and says, I think that even the guards would basically have to intervene at that point.
I mean, some of us are civilized. I was hoping we could have a civilized conversation. Why the automatic assumption to torture and violence?
Let's just say that the people you're probably working with aren't exactly happy with me. And I'm under the assumption that they'd probably rather see me suffer rather than, bring me a bed of roses and wish me good night and tuck me in. Shall we say?
No threats of violence were made. My intent was not to. Yeah, my intent isn't to threaten violence. I abhor it, actually.
All right then. So, what are you offering me?
Well, considering I cannot pretend to understand your circumstance, I was hoping you might have some requests that we could see about obliging.
Really? So you're willing to trade a favor for the key, huh?
I'm willing to negotiate. Depends on the terms. I mean,
What
if
if I
your
ask?
terms are to whisk you out of this prison under the dark of night, those are going to be a little bit of difficult terms, if you see what I mean.
Why would I want to leave? I'm surrounded
You
by
I don't
are
know.
imprisoned.
guards. I have everything I need. I could run my operation just from here. It's fine. And yes, I still do have an operation. So if you're thinking that
I had
whatever
no
goes
doubt.
on here, you can just get out and there won't be any repercussions, just know that even if somehow you could somehow harm me, it wouldn't go well for you on the outside. Assuming you even made
And
it
now
that
who's
far.
making threats?
I
We're
am.
not here to harm you.
I know. But, it's just always, liking to make sure that people are being honest and open. So I just like to put things on the table. But
I think we can both agree that we both have reach and that it is beneficial to both of our causes to be honest and come up with an amicable accord.
sure. So, as luck would have it for you, this key has pretty much served its use. So I don't particularly need it anymore. Everyone, by the way, can give me another insight check.
You say like that like I don't have a 0 in insight.
You can always roll 20. The joy of D&D. Okay. This one was an advantage, but your first number is actually so face. You will actually notice that when she talks about the key, she flexes her right hand, and kind of basically then kind of brings it brings it into her chest, and then kind of traces basically the tattoo that is on that arm. Do I actually have that handout? Does Roll20 have that handout? I have that handout. But did they actually give me that handout? Roll20. You have failed me, Roll20. But in any case, she is tracing the tattoo that is on that arm. Whenever she starts to talk about the key. And she kind of says, but as luck would have it, I do have something I need. There are interesting people here in this jail, and I'd like to know what's going on. That's the one piece of information that's really hard to get, because no one talks about it here. So having that information could make my life a little bit easier here. So let's go. We'll do something relatively simple. In the warden's office, there's a list of every prisoner, their crime, and their name, matched to their number. And that's, as far as I know, basically the wardens here keep fairly detailed records. So not only is it for people currently here, people who have been here. So bring me that information, and I'll get you your key.
That sounds like a big old stack of paperwork.
I don't know how much it is. That's not my concern. And that is where we will break it for now, since it is approaching 7:30. That is the
Nice.
request that prisoner 13 has.
Oof. I was hoping she just wanted out. That would have been so much easier.
It would be.
Just for sorry.
Good.
Just for clarity, who observed the tattoo flexing tracing thing?
Face did.
Just face.
Just face.
Okay.
It's a DC 19, so
Yeah, I was sure that Pace did. I just didn't know who else may have.
Nope, just Pace. So, we will pause that there. And basically, thank you all for basically people who are watching, and basically whether you are watching this live or you're watching this later on the VOD. Thank you for watching. Thank you for basically being people who are watching live. Thank you for being patient with us as we had technical delays and did not get quite as far as we had hoped. But you know, some days you start up OBS and it decides that it doesn't like any of your sources, and so well, you get to rebuild stuff on the fly. It's fun. But in any case, basically to reiterate what we talked about at the beginning of this is LoreLink, that thing I've been looking at. Basically, I've been looking through here. Basically, I've been kind of flipping through multiple windows and things like that. I have all of the locations kind of traced out, the maps, the handouts, what each basically the different events that can happen throughout the encounter are all right in here. I've only had to refer back to the base document a couple of times for a few things that I misplaced in copying over stuff from the adventure. But it's definitely made things much easier to go through in there rather than having to scroll all the way up and down in one long D&D Beyond module. So, if you're interested in LoreLink, as basically 20 has greatly put out, nicely put into the chat, you can go to our website. And you can look at our Getting Started page on that website, which will tell you about all the awesome things that we're doing, which includes these streams that we're doing basically on a weekly basis. Basically Tuesdays around 5 p.m. It just felt like 6 because we started late. We usually get started with basically some sort of either a tabletop game, planning out a tabletop game in LoreLink, or on the off occasions, I will play through an older, basically because it is Twitch, I will play through an old video game that is based on a TTRPG game, and basically just for funs and laugh. So if you want to know when we are doing that and want to be notified about that, you can click follow right here on this very website, twitch.tv, or if you're just watching this later on the VOD, you can subscribe to our channel there, and then you can come to our Twitch channel here at Twitch TV, basically LoreLink RPG. And you can follow us on this website, and it'll let you know. We'll send you a message saying, hey, they're live. You can come catch them. If you'd like to keep up to date on what LoreLink is doing, you just subscribe to our LoreLink newsletter. And that will keep you up to date on all of the interesting and exciting things we're doing that may not be necessarily Twitch or YouTube based, like if we're running extra live streams with the great people over in Andromeda, if we are running, basically if we are doing alpha newsletters or basically new features and things like that, all of that can be found in our newsletter. And our next one comes out not this Friday, next Friday, I believe. So basically, you also get a great comic by our wonderful artist here on staff. So hey, you got that to look forward to. Even if you don't read the newsletter, you can at least look at the pictures. And basically, besides all that, if you're interested in LoreLink, we still have our alpha up to basically available for the late signups. It will be closing soon as we get ready to release the next version of it. So we are going to close out signups for the alpha. We're going to do some rejiggering, and then we will come back with some exciting new things. Other exciting news, you can catch us in person at Origins coming up here in June. If you want to see us, basically want to see us live and in person and just try out a demo, catch us there. Outside of that is pretty much it. That's the long list of things I have to do for Spiel. Thanks to all of the basically wonderful people who joined in on this game, and I'm going to let them all go so they can go back to their lives. And we will catch you all later. Have a good night.